An electrocardiograph must be studied systematically, step by step, so that even minor changes are not missed. Here I have presented one way or order of reading the electrocardiograph. With practice, you may develop your own order of observation, but the important thing is not to miss out on any point. When you read an ECG, first inspect lead AVR. In this lead, all waves should be inverted. If they are upright, then probably limb leads were wrongly connected and ECG interpretation should be avoided. Only exceptionally it may be upright due to dextrocardia. Then calculate the heart rate. Then study the P wave morphology in lead 2 where it is most prominent. If it is more than 2 mm wide or 2 mm tall, then left or right atrial hypertrophy may be present, and an inverted P wave in lead 2 indicates nodal rhythm. Then measure the PR interval. Normally it is 3 to 5 mm. If it is increased to 5 mm or more, it is a first degree AV block. In such a case, note if there are any dropped beats suggesting second degree heart block. If the PR interval is reduced to less than 3 small squares or 0.12 seconds, look for slurring of R waves in leads 1 and V6 to rule out WPW syndrome. Now come to QRS complex. Look at leads 1 and 3 for axis deviation. Remember, left leaves and right reaches. Here both leads have upright QRS complexes, which is normal. Then measure the QRS interval in the lead in which it is most wide and clear. Generally, QRS is 2 to 2.5 mm wide. If it is more than 3 mm, that is 0.12 seconds, study whether it is left bundle branch block or right bundle branch block. Then look for pathological Q waves in anterior, inferior or chest leads. A Q wave deeper than 1 mm or wider than 1 mm or more than 1/3 of the R wave is considered as significant. Now come to chest leads and study the pattern of QRS complexes from V1 to V6. If the pattern is normal from deep S wave in V1 to tall R wave in V6, then measure SV1 and RV6 to rule out left ventricular hypertrophy. Here SV1 plus RV6 measures only 18 mm, which is less than 35 mm. If the pattern is changed, that is, if R wave is prominent in V1, then look for criteria of right ventricular hypertrophy or right bundle branch block. Next we come to the ST segment. If the ST segment is elevated or depressed, the pattern must be studied and clinically correlated to myocardial infarction, myocardial ischemia, pericarditis and ventricular strain patterns. Lastly, we study the T wave morphology and note the leads where it is tall, flat or inverted. The details of STT changes are studied in the next section of this cassette. After studying the PQRST pattern, we shall study the rhythm strip, calculate the rate and inspect grossly for arrhythmias. First see whether normal P waves are present. Study the P wave and PR interval, whether the PR interval is increased, whether it is constant in all the beats, and whether every P wave is followed by QRS complex. Are the QRS complexes of normal configuration or bizarre? And are they related to the P waves or have their own different rhythm? If there are pauses, decide whether it is a premature beat with compensatory pause, or sinus pause with escape beat, or non-conducted atrial premature beat, or second degree heart block. For every arrhythmia, you must locate the origin of the impulse and then conduction defects if any. Now let us study a few ECGs on this basis. In this ECG number 1, first see lead AVR. AVR shows negative waves, so lead placement is correct. Lead 2 shows normal P wave. PR interval is 4 millimeters, which is normal. Now coming to QRS complexes, QRS duration is 2 millimeters, which is normal. Then lead 1 shows positive QRS and lead 3 shows negative QRS, so left axis deviation is present. There are no pathological Q waves in limb leads. Now observe the chest leads. The QRS amplitude is increased. The pattern from negative QRS in V1 to positive QRS in V6 is maintained. So measure SV2, it is 14 millimeters, RV5, it is 22 millimeters, and their total is 36 millimeters. So left ventricular hypertrophy is present. Now see leads V5 and V6. They show strain pattern with ST depression and T wave inversion. So this ECG shows left ventricular hypertrophy with strain with left axis deviation. Now we come to ECG number 2. First inspect it grossly. Then come to lead AVR. AVR shows negative waves, so recording is correct. In lead 2, P wave is not seen, but lead 3 shows normal P wave. The PR interval is 4 millimeters, which is normal. Coming to QRS complexes in the limb leads, the QRS duration is 2.2 millimeters, which is normal. Lead 1 shows positive QRS and lead 3 shows mainly negative QRS, so left axis deviation is present. There is a Q wave in lead AVL which is 2 millimeters deep and 1 millimeter wide, suggesting an anterior infarct. Now come to chest leads. There is gross elevation of ST segments up to 7 millimeters from lead 1 to lead V5, suggesting an fresh anterior wall infarct. The T waves are upright, so it is less than 1 day old. Observe particularly in lead V5 plain ST elevation and a notch demarcating it from the T wave. Now see the ST segments in limb leads. There is 1.5 millimeter ST elevation in 1 and AVL and minimal depression in leads 3 and AVF. So this ECG shows a 1 day old extensive anterior wall infarct with left axis deviation. In absence of other factors, the left axis deviation suggests left anterior hemiblock, which is common association with anterior wall infarcts. Now let us analyze ECG number 3. A glance tells us that QRS complexes are very wide, a bundle branch block pattern. AVR shows negative P and QRS, so limb placement is correct. Lead 2 shows normal P wave and normal PR interval of 4 millimeters. Coming to QRS complexes in limb leads, QRS duration in lead 1 is 3 millimeters or 0.12 seconds, suggesting a bundle branch block. Lead 1 and lead 3 show a left axis deviation or left leaves pattern. There is no pathological Q wave. In the chest leads, wide QRS complexes with increased amplitude are immediately apparent. Study V1 and V6 for RR' pattern. V1 shows deep and wide QS complex. V6 shows broad R wave with no Q wave, a typical picture of left bundle branch block. T waves are opposite in direction to the QRS complexes, indicating aberrant ventricular conduction. There are no abnormal ST changes. So this ECG shows left bundle branch block with left axis deviation. Now let us learn to analyze the rhythm strips. Intermittent pause. When you see a pause, first see the preceding beat and preceding RR interval. In the upper strip, it is premature with short RR interval. So it is a premature beat with compensatory pause. In the lower strip, it is a normal sinus beat with normal RR interval. So it is a sinus arrest with an escape beat. Now study the lower strip carefully. The beat preceding the pause is not premature, but it is not sinus arrest. Study the preceding T wave carefully and see whether it is altered or does it show a P wave. You can see a P wave, so it is a very premature atrial beat which was not conducted. If the T wave is normal, only then call it a sinus arrest. In this strip, we see a sinus arrest. So now study the escape beat. This is an atrial escape beat with normal QRS and altered P wave. This is a nodal escape beat with normal QRS and inverted P wave. And this is a ventricular escape beat with wide and bizarre QRS and no P wave. If the SA node does not start functioning again, the escape beats continue and it is termed as an escape rhythm. This is a nodal escape rhythm. Note the inverted P waves in all the succeeding beats. This is an idioventricular escape rhythm. There are no P waves, QRS complexes are wide, occurring at a slow ventricular rate of 33 per minute. If the beat is premature, study the premature beat, its P wave, and decide its origin. This is an atrial premature beat with normal QRS configuration, altered P wave, and incomplete compensatory pause. This is again an atrial premature beat whose P wave is not seen but can be identified from a change in the T wave. Once again, note the change in the shape of T wave before the premature beat, indicating a P wave. This is a nodal premature beat with normal QRS configuration, inverted P wave, and incomplete compensatory pause. And this is a ventricular premature beat with wide and bizarre QRS, no P wave, opposite T wave, and complete compensatory pause. Bradycardia. When the pulse is less than 60 per minute, ECG helps to pinpoint the exact cause of bradycardia. In this ECG, the pulse rate is 48 per minute. The structure of QRS complex is normal. Every QRS is preceded by a normal P wave and normal PR interval, indicating sinus rhythm. This is sinus bradycardia. The same strip in lead 2, note normal P wave, normal PR interval, and normal QRS. In contrast, in this ECG, the QRS complexes are wide and bizarre, occurring at regular intervals, but they are not related at all to the P waves, which have their own rhythm. This is complete heart block with ventricular rhythm. This is a very similar picture where the P waves have their own rhythm and QRS complexes have their separate rhythm. But QRS complexes are normal and the rate is 45 per minute. This is complete heart block with nodal rhythm. Here we see that every second P wave is followed by a QRS complex with normal PR interval. with the result that ventricular rate is half of the atrial rate. This is bradycardia due to 2 to 1 AV block, a fixed ratio AV block. This is typical sawtooth appearance of atrial flutter, but QRS complexes are seen after every fourth F wave. This is atrial flutter with 4 to 1 AV block or high degree AV block resulting in bradycardia. Here we see bradycardia due to nodal rhythm. The P waves are inverted and the rate is about 60 per minute. Usually it follows a sinus arrest with nodal escape rhythm. Note the sinus arrest followed by nodal rhythm. Sinus arrest may also be followed by idioventricular rhythm causing bradycardia. Note the QRS complexes which are wide and at a rate of 20 to 40 per minute. There are no P waves. This is idioventricular rhythm with a rate of 33 per minute. Bradycardia may also be due to effect of drugs like beta blockers or digitalis. Note this atrial fibrillation whose rate is less than 60 per minute due to effect of digitalis. This is another ECG with a rate of 58 per minute. Note the prolonged PR interval to 6 small squares and ST segment depression like a mirror image of correction mark. This is digitalis toxicity causing bradycardia. Tachycardia. Tachycardia has to be differentiated mainly to its origin, whether it is sinus tachycardia, paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia, or atrial flutter fibrillation. First we have to see whether the QRS complexes are normal or abnormal and whether P waves are present. If the QRS complex is normal, it means that the origin of the tachycardia is above the AV node, sinus or supraventricular tachycardia. Presence of P wave is another definite indication of supraventricular origin. Then calculate the rate. In this ECG, the RR interval is 11 millimeters. So the rate is 145 per minute. P waves are normal. So this is sinus tachycardia. If the rate is 100 to 150, it is termed as sinus tachycardia. And if it is more than 160, it is supraventricular tachycardia. In this ECG, the RR interval is 8 millimeters. So the rate is 186 per minute. P waves are present. QRS complex is normal. So this is paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. To put it in very simple words, only when the RR interval is less than 10 small squares, call it a paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. In this ECG, P waves are difficult to identify in the lower lead, but you should observe all the leads carefully for P waves. Though they overlap with T waves, usually in at least one of the leads it is possible to identify P waves. Note how prominent they are seen in another lead in the same patient. If the QRS complexes are wide with inverted T waves, then it is a ventricular tachycardia. Observe this strip carefully. The wide and bizarre QRS patterns suggest a ventricular tachycardia. The rate, like paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, varies from 160 to 220 per minute. However, when this picture is seen, we must also rule out a supraventricular tachycardia with aberrant ventricular conduction of bundle branch block type. For this, study leads V1 and V6. Is there a typical RSR' or RR' pattern in these leads? No. So this should be a ventricular tachycardia. Number 2, look for capture beats with near normal QRS configuration. You can see one here in lead 2. A normal QRS beat confirms that there is no bundle branch block, and so this is ventricular tachycardia. Capture beat is a normal sinus beat in the middle of a ventricular tachycardia. Then give carotid sinus massage. A supraventricular tachycardia may be reverted to normal rhythm by carotid sinus massage. This strip shows a continuous recording while a carotid sinus massage was given, and the arrow indicates the point where normal sinus rhythm started. Now this ECG has a rate of 185 per minute. The QRS complexes are broad with left axis deviation, positive QRS in lead 1 and negative QRS in lead 3. So let us observe leads V1 and V6. This is a typical left bundle branch block pattern with broad RR dash, without Q wave in V6 and deep QS in V1. So this is supraventricular tachycardia with left bundle branch block. Coming to other causes for tachycardia, this is atrial flutter with 2-to-1 block. Note the sawtooth appearance of the flutter waves and QRS complexes on alternate waves. Since the flutter rate is around 300 per minute, ventricular rate is about 150 per minute. Atrial flutter with 2-to-1 block. Analysis of STT changes. For the purpose of explaining, the ST segment changes and T wave changes are described separately, but they are interrelated and will be discussed together wherever relevant. First we will study the types of depressions of ST segment. ST segment depressions are basically of three types. Number 1, strain pattern in right and left ventricular hypertrophy. Number 2, digitalis effect. And number 3, myocardial ischemia and infarct. This ECG shows left ventricular hypertrophy with deep S waves in V1, V2, tall R waves in V5, V6. Now observe the lead V6 in the inset. Note the ST depression of the strain pattern. In leads V5 and V6, there is mild depression of the ST segment and T wave inversion. This is left ventricular hypertrophy with strain. Now this ECG shows prominent R wave in V1 with mild depression of ST segment and T wave inversion in V1 and V2. This is right ventricular hypertrophy with strain. These are the strain patterns. Now the second type of ST depression is due to the effect of digitalis. This is the typical ST segment depression due to digitalis, described as mirror image of check mark. It slopes downwards gently and then rises steeply. It is best seen in leads with a tall R wave. The T wave amplitude is reduced, and with severe toxicity, T wave becomes flat. In this ECG, note the typical ST depression and also other effects of digitalis, that is prolonged PR interval and bradycardia. Note again in close-up view, prolonged PR interval, typical ST depression and flat T wave. The third type of ST segment depression is due to myocardial ischemia and infarct. At the onset, let us clear our mind from the reciprocal ST segment depressions in acute myocardial infarction. This is inferior wall infarct, where leads 1 and AVL show ST segment depression and 2-3 AVF show ST segment elevation. The anterior and inferior group of leads show opposite effects on ST segments. Note the ST segment elevation in leads 2 and ST segment depression in lead AVL. In contrast, this is an anterior wall infarct where leads 1 and AVL show ST segment elevation and 2-3 AVF show ST segment depression. Now we will see various types of ST segment depressions due to myocardial ischemia. Observe the lower ECG first. During an acute attack of angina pectoris, ST segment is depressed by 1 to 2 millimeters, particularly in leads V5 and V6. But this is a transient change. In the upper ECG taken 2 hours later, the ST segment has returned to normal. This is typical angina pectoris or Heberden's angina. A mild ST segment depression in V5 and V6 with low amplitude or inverted T waves is a typical feature of chronic angina. Mild ST depressions in V5 and V6 with inverted T waves is usually due to chronic myocardial ischemia or angina. So ST segment depression in V5, V6 suggests coronary artery disease or left ventricular hypertrophy with strain. In absence of ventricular hypertrophy, it strongly suggests myocardial ischemia. ST segment depressions in leads V2 to V5 may commonly be due to reciprocal changes of inferior wall infarct or due to subendocardial infarct. Now here we see an ECG of inferior wall infarct. Note the ST depressions in leads V1 to V4. The T waves are upright and it will be associated with ST segment elevations in 2-3 AVF. So this is reciprocal ST segment depression of inferior wall infarct. When there is ST segment depression with inverted T waves, as in this ECG, where the ST segment is depressed and T wave is deeply inverted, this is subendocardial infarct. When only the subendocardial portion of the myocardium is infarcted, not the full thickness but only the subendocardial portion of the myocardium is infarcted, then several chest leads show ST depression with T wave inversion. Normally, when full thickness of endocardium is infarcted, there is ST elevation with tall T waves. But when only subendocardial infarct occurs, there is ST depression with deeply inverted T waves in chest leads and anterior leads. This is subendocardial infarct. At this stage, let us remember the picture of anteroseptal infarct where the ST segment is elevated and T wave is inverted. Compare here on the left ST depression in subendocardial infarct and on the right ST elevation in anteroseptal infarct, both with inverted T waves. If the ST segment depression is seen in leads V1 and V2, it is usually not due to ischemia. It may be due to right ventricular hypertrophy with strain or due to true posterior wall infarction. So if the ST segment is depressed in V1 and V2, look for the R wave of right ventricular hypertrophy in V1. If the R wave is prominent and T wave is flat or inverted, then it is right ventricular hypertrophy with strain. And if the T wave is tall and ST segment is depressed, it may be a true posterior wall infarct, which is seen on ECG as reciprocal changes in V1 and V2 with ST segment depression and tall T waves. Note once again ST segment depression and tall T waves in V1 and V2 in posterior wall infarct. To revise, ST depression with T wave inversion in V5 and V6 suggests myocardial ischemia. In V1 and V2, tall R wave, ST segment depression and T wave inversion suggests right ventricular hypertrophy with strain, while ST segment depression with tall T wave suggests true posterior wall infarct. In the middle leads, ST segment depression with flat or upright T wave is usually due to inferior wall infarct with reciprocal changes, while ST segment depression with deeply inverted T wave is due to subendocardial infarct. ST segment elevations. ST segment elevation is the hallmark of acute phase of myocardial infarction. The changing pattern of T waves gives us two different pictures. This is ST segment elevation with tall upright T wave. So the ST segment is concave upwards. This is seen in the hyperacute phase of myocardial infarction for first few hours. This is ST segment elevation with inverted T wave. So the ST segment is convex upwards. This is the picture 1 to 2 days after an acute attack of myocardial infarction. It is important to note whether there is reciprocal ST depression in the opposite leads. That will confirm the diagnosis of infarction. Note the ST elevation in lead 3, which is an inferior wall lead, and reciprocal ST depression in chest lead, which is an anterior lead. While in this ECG, there is ST elevation in the chest lead and reciprocal ST depression in the inferior wall lead. So the second important point to note is the leads showing ST elevation, which will localize the infarct. And third point is the nature of T wave, which will tell the age of the infarct. Remember once again that ST elevation with T wave inversion is seen only in established myocardial infarct. The second cause of ST segment elevation is acute pericarditis. This ST elevation is concave upwards with upright T waves. So it mimics hyperacute phase of myocardial infarction, and even clinically the pain is identical. But pericarditis is a diffuse process. So ST segment elevation is seen in all leads, anterior and posterior, and chest and limb leads. Though sometimes all leads may not show ST elevation, causing a confusing picture. But reciprocal ST depression will never be seen in pericarditis. So reciprocal ST depression rules out acute pericarditis. To revise, ST segment elevation is the representation of acute phase of myocardial infarct. Convex upwards ST segment elevation with T wave inversion is seen only in myocardial infarction, while concave upwards ST segment elevation with upright T wave may be seen either in acute infarct or in acute pericarditis. Reciprocal ST depression is again a diagnostic feature of acute myocardial infarction, while in pericarditis all groups of leads show ST segment elevation. T wave inversions. A T wave inversion may occur in 4 conditions: abnormal ventricular conduction, strain pattern in ventricular hypertrophy, myocardial ischemia, and generalized T wave inversions in chronic pericarditis. So if ventricular conduction is normal, that is QRS complex is normal, and if there is no hypertrophy of ventricles with strain, then T wave inversion strongly points to myocardial ischemia. Now first we will consider aberrant ventricular conduction. Normally, when impulse is distributed through normal conduction pathway, the T wave is in the same direction as the main QRS complex. But when intraventricular conduction is abnormal, the T wave is opposite to the main QRS complex and hence inverted. Here are a few examples. This is a ventricular premature beat. Note the wide QRS complex and inverted T wave. In this strip, we see multifocal ventricular premature beats. The first beat is normal, and second and third beats are ventricular premature beats. Note that the T wave is opposite to the direction of the main QRS complex. This is an ECG of left bundle branch block. Note the RR' pattern, wide QRS complex due to aberrant ventricular conduction and inverted T wave. This is a complete heart block with ventricular rhythm. Note the regularly occurring P waves and independent QRS complexes which are wide and bizarre with inverted T waves. This is another example of aberrant ventricular conduction in WPW syndrome. Note the delta wave, that is a slurring on the upstroke of R wave, and the inverted T wave. All these are called secondary T wave inversions, secondary to aberrant ventricular conduction. They have no other significance. Now let us see the T wave inversions in ventricular hypertrophies with strain. This is left ventricular hypertrophy with strain as seen in lead V6. Note the tall R wave of left ventricular hypertrophy. This is right ventricular hypertrophy with strain as seen in lead V1. Note the R wave in V1 suggesting right ventricular hypertrophy. Now we come to the ischemic T wave inversions. The T wave of myocardial ischemia is very typical. Normal T wave has asymmetrical limbs and flat top, but in ischemia it becomes symmetrical and pointed like an arrowhead. First we will consider a patient who is in acute chest pain. Mild ST elevation with deeply inverted and symmetrical pointed T waves is typical of fully evolved myocardial infarction. The T wave remains inverted for about 3 months after the infarction. This ECG shows deep T wave inversion with ST segment depression in leads V3, V4, V5 and V6. This T wave inversion with ST segment depression in chest leads suggests a subendocardial infarct. Similar changes are seen in 1 and AVL also. Subendocardial infarct. This is a positive stress test. Note the ischemic T wave inversion and ST segment depression in leads V5 and V6. Another cause of chest pain with T wave inversion is an acute attack of angina. The ST segment is depressed with T wave inversion in lead V5, but this change is transient and will return to normal after the attack subsides. The fifth cause for T wave inversions with acute chest pain is pulmonary embolism. Inverted T waves with raised ST segment as seen in myocardial infarct are seen in leads V1 to V3. This picture with inverted T waves in 3 and AVF suggests acute pulmonary embolism. But these changes are not diagnostic and have to be supported by clinical and other evidence. If the inverted T waves are seen in patients without acute chest pain, they suggest myocardial ischemia, and their location tells the area of ischemia. T wave inversion seen here is in lead V5. This is typical of chronic angina. This ECG shows T wave inversion in 1 AVL, V5 and V6. It indicates myocardial ischemia in anterior wall, probably narrowing of anterior descending branch. This ECG shows T wave inversion in 2-3 AVF. This indicates ischemia in the inferior wall, probably narrowing of posterior descending artery. Now observe this ECG. The T waves are inverted in all chest leads. They are also inverted in limb leads. Generalized T wave inversion is seen in the second phase of acute pericarditis. Tall T waves. The normal variations in the T wave amplitude are often confusing, and generally T waves should be considered pathological if they are more than 10 millimeters tall in the chest leads and more than 5 millimeters tall in the limb leads. In the evaluation of tall T waves, the associated ST segment changes are very important. The tall T waves are most noticeable in the chest leads. When tall T waves are seen in chest leads, first look at inferior wall leads, that is 2, 3 and AVF for inferior wall infarct. Here leads 2 and 3 show inverted T waves with Q wave in lead 3, suggesting that there is a recent inferior wall infarct. So the tall T waves is a reciprocal change in the chest leads. Now this ECG shows very tall, narrow and peaked T waves. These are typical of hyperkalemia. Note that they are seen in all the chest leads and they are also seen in the limb leads. So this is hyperkalemia or raised serum potassium levels. This is another ECG of hyperkalemia. Note the tall peaked T waves more than 10 millimeters high in all the leads. Tall T waves with elevated ST segment are seen in two conditions which we have already studied. Number 1, acute myocardial infarct on the first day and acute pericarditis when seen in all leads. If the tall T wave is associated with ST segment depression in the chest leads, note the leads involved. If seen in leads V1 to V3, it is diagnostic of a true posterior wall infarct. And if seen in most of the chest leads, it is probably due to subendocardial ischemia. Not infarct but subendocardial ischemia. So tall T waves with depressed ST segment in chest leads is seen in posterior wall infarct and subendocardial ischemia. In this section, we will study the effect of certain drugs and electrolytes on the ECG. First, digitalis effect and toxicity. This is an ECG of a patient on digitalis. The thin drawing in the background is a normal tracing for comparison. Note the prolongation of PR interval to 5½ small squares or 0.22 seconds, indicating first degree AV block. The QRS complex is normal. The ST segment shows 1 mm depression and the T wave is upright but flattened. This is an effect of digitalization, slowing of heart rate, prolongation of PR interval, slight ST segment depression and reduced amplitude of the T wave. Now we will see what happens with overdosage of digitalis or digitalis toxicity. The PR interval is further prolonged and there may be second degree heart block with few dropped beats. And there is a very characteristic ST segment depression described as mirror image of a correction mark. On the left we see a correction mark and on the right is its mirror image. That is how the characteristic ST segment depression looks in digitalis toxicity. The ST segment takes an angled downward slope and rises steeply upwards to join the T wave. The T wave is flat. It is best seen in leads with a prominent R wave. The inset shows the mirror image. In this ECG, note the characteristic ST depression with slow downward slope and steep upward rise. The T wave is flat and the PR interval is prolonged, indicating first degree heart block. In this ECG once again, the characteristic ST segment depression of digitalis toxicity is seen. With further toxicity, the T wave becomes flat or inverted and various cardiac arrhythmias may appear, commonest being ventricular extrasystoles, ventricular bigeminy, progressing to ventricular tachycardia. Also remember that the ST depressions of digitalis toxicity are seen in many leads, anterior as well as posterior and chest leads. Hyperkalemia or a rise in serum potassium levels. With mild rise in serum potassium levels to say 7 milliequivalents per liter, the T wave becomes taller and peaked, a very typical feature of hyperkalemia, and the P wave becomes flat. With further rise in potassium levels, the PR interval increases, while P waves become small and may even disappear. The T waves become taller and wider, tent-shaped, and the ST segment gradually merges into the proximal limb of the T wave. In this ECG of a patient with hyperkalemia, note the absence of P waves. Very tall and peaked T waves. The T wave is more than 10 millimeters in a chest lead. The ST segment is taken up in the proximal limb of the T wave. Note again the absence of P wave in lead 2, tall T wave and absent P wave. The tall T waves are more apparent in the chest leads. Hypokalemia. With hypokalemia, the T wave amplitude progressively diminishes while U wave becomes prominent. This may give a false impression of increased QT interval, but actually it is a U wave which has become prominent. Hypo and hypercalcemia. Reduced levels of calcium in blood causes prolongation of QT interval due to prolongation of the ST segment. Normally, QT interval is about 10 small squares or up to 0.4 seconds, but here it is prolonged to about 15 small squares. Note that in this ECG, the QRS is normal, the T wave is also normal, only the ST segment is prolonged. See this ECG of a patient with tetany. The QRS complex is normal, T wave is normal, only the ST segment is prolonged, causing prolongation of QT interval. In contrast, this ECG shows shortened ST segment and T wave begins immediately after the QRS complex. The ST segment also shortens in hyperkalemia, but there the T wave is tall and peaked. Note the ECG on the right where the T wave is very tall, whereas in hypercalcemia the T wave is normal and ST segment is shortened. Quinidine toxicity. Quinidine toxicity results in lengthening of the QT interval and also widening of the QRS complex. Note that in this ECG, the QRS complex is widened uniformly and the ST segment is also prolonged with overall lengthening of the QT interval. This is in contrast with hypocalcemia, where QT segment is prolonged but QRS and T waves are normal. Note again that in quinidine toxicity, the QRS is widened and ST segment is also prolonged, while in hypocalcemia, only the ST segment is prolonged. The QRS complex is normal. Note the P wave in lead 2. It is 3 millimeters wide and 2.5 millimeters tall, so it is biatrial hypertrophy. Now see the P wave in lead V1. The P wave has a broad negative component. In lead V1, P wave is biphasic. The first positive component is right atrial and second negative component is left atrial. So left atrial hypertrophy can also be diagnosed from a broad negative P wave in lead V1. This picture suggests ventricular tachycardia or supraventricular tachycardia with bundle branch block. RR interval is 9 millimeters, so the heart rate is 165 per minute. To differentiate the two conditions, see leads V1 and V6. A deep S wave in V1 and a broad R wave without Q wave in V6 tells us that this is left bundle branch block. So this is supraventricular tachycardia with left bundle branch block. Here is a premature beat with compensatory pause. The QRS structure is normal, so it is supraventricular. So study the P wave. It is upright but slightly different from the sinus P waves. So this is an atrial premature beat. Study the P waves in this ECG. Tall peaked P waves in 2, 3 and AVF. This is P pulmonale of right atrial hypertrophy. In this ECG, study the ST segments. In 2, 3 and AVF, there is ST elevation of 5 millimeters. The T waves are upright. Leads 1 and AVL show reciprocal ST depression. So this is a fresh inferior wall infarct. Now let us see the chest leads. There is reciprocal ST depression in V2, V3, V4 and V5. So this is an extensive infarct. This ECG shows a normal beat followed by a run of ventricular premature beats. It heralds ventricular tachycardia. Study the chest leads. The QRS complexes are 3 millimeters wide. There is RS-R' pattern in V1 and V2 indicating right bundle branch block. A broad S wave in V5 and V6 supports our diagnosis. So this is right bundle branch block. In the limb leads there is left axis deviation. Normally right bundle branch block should have right axis deviation or a normal axis. Left axis deviation suggests associated left anterior hemiblock. This is lead 3. Deep Q wave and raised ST segment indicate inferior wall infarct. Now study the P wave and PR interval. The PR interval is 11 millimeters or 0.44 seconds. So there is first degree heart block also. Diagnosis is fresh inferior wall infarct with first degree heart block. This is a premature beat with compensatory pause in lead V1. The QRS complex is broad with tall slurred R wave of right bundle branch block pattern. Note the P waves. The P wave is altered in the premature beat. So this is an atrial premature beat in a patient with right bundle branch block. In this ECG, study the limb leads. The QRS complexes are broad. Concentrate on lead 2. The P wave is very close to the QRS complex. There is no PR segment and a delta wave is seen. This is WPW syndrome. With this, we come to the end of this cassette. I expect that after studying this cassette, you will be able to diagnose common conditions with ease. But be aware that there is much more to read in ECGs than what we have seen till now. There are many more fine points and differentiations, but that is for a cardiologist to read. It is beyond the scope of this cassette, which at its best is an introduction to basic electrocardiography. If the basics are understood and common ECGs interpreted with ease, then the cassette has served its function. Thank you.